You don't belong here and your shirt was found first.
Bullies toured the new black girl's skirt 60 seconds later. They were on floor begging. The sound of tearing fabric echoed through the Lincoln High hallways like thunder. Amara stood frozen, clutching her homemade dress, her brown eyes blazing with anger. Lila smirked. "It's such a beautiful dress." But within 60 seconds, all three bullies were on the floor begging. The hallways at Lincoln High School in suburban Chicago were bustling on a cold February morning. Snow was still clinging to the high windows, creating a hazy layer of fog that obscured the weak sunlight. Students huddled around navy blue lockers, their breasts forming tiny clouds in the cold air. Laughter lockers slamming and sneakers scuffing on linoleum floors echoed down the long hallway. Amara Johnson, a 16-year-old with chocolate brown skin, walked with a quiet confidence that was no less proud. Her naturally curly hair was tied back into a neat bun, revealing chubby cheeks and expressive brown eyes. She wore a burgundy midi dress with tiny floral patterns, a handmade creation from a fabric her grandmother had sent from Atlanta, along with valuable sewing lessons. This is Amara's second week at Lincoln High, after moving with her mother from Atlanta to Chicago for work. The sudden change has not been easy. From a warm southern city with a rich African-American community, she now has to adjust to a new environment, colder in both weather and people. What she didn't know was that the cold eyes of the seniors had followed her since day one. Brandon Mitchell, a tall boy with platinum blonde hair and pale skin, was the son of a wealthy real estate developer. Lila Peterson, with straight brown hair and perfect white teeth, was the daughter of a prestigious family of lawyers. Kyle Henderson, broad-shouldered like a football player, but with a shallow mind, followed the other two like a shadow. For them, Amara represented everything they were unfamiliar with and unwilling to accept. She was new, different, and most importantly, she was an easy target. They had been silently observing her, learning her habits and weaknesses, waiting for the right moment to welcome her in their own way. What the group of students did not know was that Amara's past contained secrets that only her family knew. Since the age of 6, she had been taught martial arts by her grandmother, Grace Johnson, a former national-level taekwondo athlete. Not just the basic moves, but also a profound philosophy of discipline, respect, and self-protection. Grace once told her, "Daughter, strength is not for showing off or bullying others. It is for protecting what is important to you, your honor, your family, and those less fortunate." These words were ingrained in Amara's mind, creating a strong moral framework that she always followed. Amara's special strength lies not only in her martial arts skills, but also in her ability to read people and situations. She can sense the tension in the air, know when someone has bad intentions, and most importantly, she knows how to control her emotions in emergency situations. The central issue Amara faces is not simply adjusting to her new surroundings. She must overcome feelings of loneliness, the underlying discrimination based on her skin color and background, and find a way to fit in without sacrificing her identity. She knows that once she uses her martial arts skills, the peaceful life she has dreamed of will no longer be possible. That day, Amara sensed something was wrong from the moment she stepped foot into the school. There was a suspicious silence every time she walked by. The whispers stopped abruptly, and most importantly, Brandon's group seemed to be hunting her with the patience of professional predators. During mid-morning break, as Amara walked from math to history, she decided to take the shortest route through the area near the stairs, an area that was less supervised and typically had less student traffic. It was a decision she would soon regret. Lila appeared like a ghost, stepping out from behind a pillar with a fake sweet smile. "Oh, Amara, what a beautiful dress," she said in an overly cheerful tone. "Where did you get it?" "Walmart." Amara paused, all senses alert. She had learned to read danger in tone and gestures, and right now everything indicated that this was not a friendly conversation. "Thank you," she replied curtly, trying to move on. But Brandon and Kyle appeared, blocking both ends of the hallway as planned. She knew she had fallen into a trap. Their plan was simple but effective: isolate the target, create an awkward situation, then escalate slowly. "I think I need to get to know Amara better." Lila continued, her voice growing more malicious. "I hear you're from Atlanta. Do they teach you proper dress there?" The opportunity presented itself when Lila deliberately bumped into Amara, knocking her books and notes to the floor. Papers flew everywhere. Pencils rolled away. Oh, sorry. Lila pretended to look apologetic, but her eyes were filled with hostility. As Amara bent down to pick up the books, it was the moment they had been waiting for. Lila suddenly grabbed the hem of Amara's dress and yanked it. The sound of ripping fabric split the quiet air, like a clap of thunder in a clear sky. The burgundy fabric, her labor of love that she had spent a week perfecting, was now torn, revealing a portion of the leggings underneath. A crucial decision was made in that split second. Amara could have chosen to duck, run away, or report the matter to the teacher. But when she saw the amused grin on Brandon's face, Kyle's evil chuckle, and especially Lila's contemptuous gaze, she knew this was about more than just a dress. This is about honor, about the values Grace taught her, about not letting anyone trample on her dignity. Amara straightened slowly, turning to face her three attackers. Her brown eyes, always gentle and friendly, now burned like embers. She took a deep breath, feeling her center of gravity shift, her feet automatically coming into position. "You just arrived and you want to stand out?" Southern girl Brandon smirked, moving closer, with the confidence of someone who thought he had control of the situation. Amara's plan quickly formed in her head. She knew that Kyle would be the most dangerous because of his size. Brandon was overconfident and could be easily fooled. As for Lila, she would be the last one because she usually hid behind the other two. "Don't test me," she said, her voice calm but sharp as a dagger, completely different from the shy girl they imagined. The plan was complete when Kyle, with a look of disdain on his face, laughed loudly and charged. "Little girl thinks you can threaten us." Kyle's first attempt was crude. He intended to push Amara to the floor, as he had done to so many of his victims. What he didn't know was that Amara had been trained to take on men larger than herself. With a dance-like motion, Amara slid aside, sending Kyle hurtling into the air. Before he could react, she delivered a precise roundhouse kick to his knee. Kyle cried out in pain as he fell to the floor, clutching his leg and groaning. "Kyle!" Brandon yelled, but instead of fear, his eyes burned with anger. He charged forward with Lila, thinking that the overwhelming numbers would make it easier to take down a girl. This is where her years of taekwondo training come in. Amara doesn't run away or attack randomly. She uses a technique called redirect, redirecting her opponent's force against them. As Brandon lunged, Amara grabbed his arm, spun him around, and used his momentum to throw him straight into Lila. They collided with a loud bang, then fell flat on their faces onto the hard floor. Brandon hit his head on the dresser with a loud thud, and Lila fell face first, her perfect brown hair now a mess. In less than 60 seconds, the three bullies were lying on the floor. Kyle was still clutching his knee in pain. Brandon was dazed with a red bruise on his forehead, and Lila was sitting up with fear in her eyes. Amara stood there, chest heaving, but in complete control. She had never felt such a combination of adrenaline and confidence. Years of practice had become instinct, every movement precise and purposeful. "Enough, spare us!" Lila screamed, her voice shaking like autumn leaves. Her haughty smile was gone, replaced by genuine fear at a power she could not understand. Amara looked down at the three of them, her eyes still burning, but no longer angry. "I don't want to fight," she said, her voice low and steady. "But you picked the wrong person to bully." Crowds of students gathered around the area, mouths agape at the unbelievable sight. Phones were raised from all directions, capturing the moment a new girl with nothing but martial arts skills had taken down three notorious school bullies. Marcus Williams, a black junior who Brandon's gang often picked on, pushed through the crowd and clapped. "Great," he shouted. "Finally someone let them lose." News of the Taekwondo girl spread like wildfire through the school before the bell rang. The hashtag #RushNewGirlFight began trending on local social media, with the video shared thousands of times within an hour. The attention from outside came faster and stronger than Amara expected. During lunch break, she became the center of attention in the entire school. Some students looked at her with respect. Others were curious about where she learned martial arts. Even students who had never spoken to her before now tried to approach her. Sarah Martinez, a small Hispanic 10th grader, approached Amara's table trembling. "Sister," she said softly, "thank you. Last week, Lila ripped my shirt off and poured milk on my head, but I didn't dare do anything." This statement hit Amara like a punch in the gut. She realized that what she was going through was not unique. There were many other students who were also silently enduring the bullying of Brandon's group. The first big step came when David Kim, the student council president and an Asian student who had experienced discrimination, approached Amara. "I think you should join student council," he said. "We need people like you, people who aren't afraid to stand up." Amara felt a subtle shift in the way people viewed her. She went from being the strange new girl to being the brave girl who deserves respect. But with that respect came responsibility. Many students began to expect her to stand up for them. Preparations for the big challenge begin as Amara realizes that taking down Brandon and his group is just the beginning. She knows they won't take this humiliation well, especially in front of the entire school. The real battle hasn't even begun yet. The unexpected happened the following Monday. Amara arrived at school to find her locker vandalized. The words "Go back to Africa" were written in red paint on the door, her books were torn to shreds, and most importantly, a threatening note was taped to the middle. "Next time it won't be just clothes, you crazy bitch." This incident was not only a matter of property damage, but also a serious racial slur. Amara felt both anger and pain. The toxic words were not only an attack on her personally, but also an insult to the entire African American community. But what devastated her most was the reaction of some students. Instead of condemning her behavior, some whispered that she had gone too far and needed to learn some manners. Shoktun. She realized that standing up for herself had made her a target not only of bullies, but also of deep-seated societal prejudices. The pivotal moment came when Principal Thompson called her into his office. He, a middle-aged white man with a stern face, sat behind a large desk with two parents, Brandon's parents. Mrs. Mitchell, Brandon's mother, was a woman in an expensive suit with cold eyes. "Amara Johnson," she said, "you have caused a serious problem. My son is injured and is receiving medical treatment. We are considering legal action." Mr. Mitchell, a prominent lawyer, added, "The child's violent behavior is unacceptable. We are demanding that he be expelled from school and compensated for the damage." Amara sat there feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. She understood that this was no longer just a confrontation between student and student, but a battle between power and justice, between privilege and truth. Principal Thompson looked at her with an unreadable expression. "Amara, would you like to explain what happened?" This is the turning point where she has to choose stay silent to avoid bigger trouble or speak the truth, even though she may have to face serious consequences. Amara took a deep breath, thinking of Grace, of her mother, of all the people who had sacrificed so she could stand here today. "I will tell the truth," she said, her voice trembling but determined. She began to tell the whole story from the beginning, from the early days of pointing fingers, the racist comments, the intentional pushing in the hallway, and finally the skirt-ripping incident. She explained that she acted in self-defense after being attacked and threatened. "Those are just excuses," Mrs. Mitchell interrupted. "You have no proof." But then something unexpected happened. The office door opened and Sarah Martinez walked in, followed by Marcus Williams and 5 other students. Among them was Amy Peterson, a white girl who had been Lila's best friend. Headmaster Sarah said, her voice trembling but firm, "We have something to report." The final preparations were a small revolution. Sarah and her brave group of students had gathered a lot of evidence of Brandon, Lila, and Kyle's bullying. They had videos secretly filmed by other students, they had threatening messages, and most importantly, they had the testimony of dozens of other victims. Amy Peterson, her eyes red from crying, spoke up. "I'm sorry for being silent for so long. Brandon and Lila bullied a lot of students. They threatened that if anyone told, they would retaliate. I was scared, so I didn't do anything." Marcus Williams held a small camera in his hand. "I recorded the audio of the conversation when Brandon and Kyle planned to attack Amara. They had planned it all along." Principal Thompson listened to the testimony, reviewed the evidence, and then turned to the Mitchells with a serious expression. "I think we need to review the school's security cameras." The last of the doubts were dispelled when the surveillance video was played. The clear images showed the whole scene: Lila deliberately bumping into Amara, deliberately ripping her dress, Brandon and Kyle surrounding her to prevent her from escaping, and Amara only reacting when directly attacked. Mrs. Mitchell paled as her son's behavior was exposed to her. Mr. Mitchell tried to defend himself, but her reaction was excessive. She could have caused serious injury. Just then, a familiar voice rang out from the door. My nephew's reaction was completely appropriate to the level of threat he faced. Everyone turned to look. Grace Johnson, a 55-year-old woman with the imposing posture of a veteran fighter, entered the room. She wore a formal black suit but still exuded the air of a warrior. Following her was Amara's mother, Jennifer Johnson, a young lawyer with a determined gaze. "I'm Grace Johnson, Amara's martial arts instructor," Grace introduced herself. "And I'm also a former coach for the Georgia State Youth Taekwondo team. I can confirm that my granddaughter used the minimum amount of force necessary to defend herself." Jennifer Johnson, Amara's mother, opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick file. "I'm a civil rights attorney. What my daughter experienced was more than simple bullying. There was a serious racial component. If the Mitchell family wants to sue, we're prepared to countersue on hate crime charges." The main event began when Principal Thompson decided to hold a special meeting with the school board, parent, representatives, and concerned students. The school's large conference room was used with over 50 people in attendance. The pressure started high as Mr. Mitchell, with his experience as a veteran lawyer, tried to put the blame entirely on Amara. "This girl used martial arts to attack other students. This sets a dangerous precedent for the school environment." The initial difficulties came when other parents also expressed concerns about allowing violence in schools. Amara sat there feeling like she was being judged instead of protected. But the turning point came when Sarah Martinez stood up and began to tell her story. The diminutive girl, her voice trembling but determined, described what she had endured. "Brandon and his gang made me afraid to go to school. They poured food on me, tore up my books, and said horrible things about my family. I didn't dare tell anyone because I was afraid of retaliation." Next was Marcus Williams. "They stuck my head in a locker and locked it. I had to knock for 20 minutes before anyone opened the door. I couldn't breathe." Then Amy Peterson. "I saw Lila push a student down the stairs. He had to go to the emergency room, but I was afraid to speak up because I knew I would be the next target." Each story is told as a piece of a horrifying picture of systemic bullying that schools either failed to recognize or deliberately ignored. The moment of triumph came when Sarah's 9-year-old brother was brought in by his mother. The boy, shaking, told her that Kyle had threatened to harm him if Sarah did not keep quiet about the bullying. Mrs. Mitchell sat there, her face pale, as she realized the gravity of the actions her son had taken part in. The truth finally emerged. This was not the case of a tough student, but the story of a victim who was finally brave enough to stand up. The results were announced immediately by Principal Thompson after a 3-hour meeting. Brandon Mitchell was expelled permanently and referred to law enforcement for threatening and assault with intent. Lila Peterson was suspended for 6 months in order to attend an intensive psychological counseling program. Kyle Henderson was transferred and barred from returning to Lincoln High. More importantly, Lincoln High School had to make a complete overhaul of its anti-bullying policy. They established a confidential hotline, increased hallway surveillance, and required all students to take courses on respecting cultural diversity. Amara was formally apologized to the entire school and awarded the Brave Student of the Year award. But what she cherishes most is not the award, but the positive changes her story has brought about. The lasting impact was beyond anyone's imagination. Amara's story was covered by local newspapers, becoming a symbol of standing up to injustice. She was invited to appear on television shows to share her experiences and encourage other young people. Sarah Martinez became Amara's best friend, and together they founded the Voices of Change Club, a student organization dedicated to supporting those who are being bullied. Marcus Williams joined a Taekwondo class run by Amara and Grace, learning self-defense and building self-confidence. Even Amy Peterson, after overcoming her guilt for staying silent for so long, became one of the most active anti-bullying advocates at her school. The final personal moment came one weekend evening. Amara sat in her room holding a burgundy dress that Grace had expertly mended. The elegant stitches had healed not only the fabric, but also her soul. Grace sat next to her, holding an old photo that Amara had never seen before. In the photo, a young woman in a Taekwondo uniform stood next to a little girl of about 8 with a bright smile. "That's your mother," Grace said softly, Michelle Johnson. She was also an excellent Taekwondo fighter before she died in a car accident. Amara took the photo with trembling hands. She had known her mother had died young, but she had never known she had practiced martial arts. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I want you to find your own way," Grace replied. Michelle used to say that true strength comes not from muscle or technique, but from the courage to do the right thing when no one else dares. She gave Amara a new black belt with her name embroidered in gold. Your mother wanted me to give this belt to you when you are ready to become a protector of the weak. Amara hugged the belt tightly, feeling its weight, not just physically, but emotionally. She understood that the past few weeks had not just been about standing up to a bully, but about carrying on her mother's legacy and continuing her mission to uphold justice. From then on, every time she entered Lincoln High, Amara was no longer the new girl. She was Amara Johnson, daughter of Michelle Johnson, student of Grace Johnson, and most importantly, protector of all those who needed protection.